ॐ विश्वन्दर्पण दृश्यमान नगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठं अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे। नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रिय ब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ आथाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः। प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी त्रैवर्तकः केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. I welcome you all to the 13th class of our Bhagavad Gita study. We will read the 16th verse of the second chapter. Nasato vidyate bhavaha
नासतो विद्यते भावः
na bhavo vidyate sataha
नाभावो विद्यते सतः
ubhayorapi drishtontah
उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः
त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः.
त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः.
So as we have been seeing, Bhagavan has introduced the Atma, the real self. And why is Bhagavan introducing the Atma, the real self? Because there is a possibility of a mistaken self. If the real self is not known, then the self is mistaken to be something other than the real self. Why is the mistaken self a problem? Because the mistaken self alone further develops into this disease of samsara. The idea that I am deficient, wanting, inadequate, apurnaha, this limited body mind, this is the mistaken self. And when this idea of the mistaken self rules my mind, then I become dependent upon the world for my fulfillment, for my completeness, for my adequacy. And the world is inherently unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unsustainable. And therefore, shokaha, sorrow, and mohaha, confusion are inevitable. And these are the distressing symptoms of the disease of samsara. And therefore, Bhagavan is attacking the disease of samsara by identifying its root cause, which is Atma Jnanam, self-ignorance. That is why Bhagavan is giving Arjuna the Atma Jnanam. And therefore, Bhagavan is telling Arjuna who he really is. And indirectly, Bhagavan is telling all of us who we really are. Therefore, Bhagavan said, Natvevaham jatunasam, natvam neme janadhipaha, nachaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayam atah param. In verse number 12. Bhagavan said that this Atma, the real self, is immortal. It doesn't come and go. Bodies come and go, but the real self is immortal, eternal. And then subsequently, in verse number 13, Bhagavan said, Dehinaha asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantarah praptihi dhiraha tatra na muhyati. In life, we go through these stages of babyhood, boyhood, youth, and old age. And when one goes from one stage to the other, when the prior stage departs and a new stage comes in, at that point the indweller of the body, the Atma, doesn't depart and a new Atma does not come in. The Atma remains the same. And so also is taking another body. And like we said, we may feel that I am going through the states, I'm going through these changes in states, but that is very much like a crystal with a flower kept nearby. And when we change the flower, the color that appears in the crystal also changes. So somebody who doesn't know the real nature of the crystal may think that the crystal is really going through changes in colors when the flower is changed. But then a crystal jnani knows that the crystal is entirely unaffected by the coming and going of these flowers. So also the Atma is completely unaffected whether one goes through babyhood, boyhood, youth, old age. And so also, even the dropping of this body and the acquisition of a new body, the Atma is completely unaffected. And Bhagavan pointed out that when the sense organs come in contact with the sense objects, in verse number 14, then one goes through various experiences of heat and cold, comfort and discomfort, and these can lead to pleasure and pain. But then these experiences are all anityaha, they come and go, they are agama painaha. Therefore, Bhagavan says, you on the other hand are nityaha, you are immortal, you never come and go, you stand there like a rock, where all these are like small waves that are lashing at the rock. Rock is not affected at all because the rock doesn't come and go. And therefore, just as the rock is able to endure these waves that are hitting upon it, like Swami Chinmayananda used to call this the pinpricks of life, pinpricks of life. So Bhagavan says, endure these pinpricks of life. Don't make a big deal out of them. Titikshasva Bharata, endure them because they all come and go, whereas you stand steady there. Nityaha, you are Nityaha. Then in a subsequent verse, in verse number 16 that we just read, Bhagavan gives another reason for why these need to be endured. Because they are not real. So the first reason Bhagavan gave is that they are anityaha. The second reason Bhagavan gives is that they are asatyaha. Na sato vidyate bhavaha. Na bhavaha vidyate sataha. Ubhayoho api drishtaha antaha tvaneyoho tattvadarshinihi. So you are nityaha and satyaha, whereas these are anityaha and asatyaha, or we introduce this other word called mithya. So we said that we have to really understand what mithya is, because Brahma Satyam, Brahman is Satyam, Jagat is Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. The teaching that Jagat is Mithya is one of the pillars of the Vedantic teaching. Therefore, we have to have clarity with regards to what Mithya is and what Satyam is. And therefore, we looked at the example of the golden bangle. We look into the golden bangle. If we inquire into the golden bangle, then we find that there is no substance called bangle at all. The substance that we find is really the gold and gold alone. That's why we say that gold is the saraha. Gold is the substance. The weight of the bangle belongs to the gold. The touch of the bangle belongs to the gold. Color of the bangle belongs to the gold. Oh, the gold is the saraha. The bangle is asaraha. The bangle is something hollow. It is not a substance at all. That is the first lesson. The second lesson is that gold alone is nitya. Before the bangle came into existence, gold alone was. Even when the bangle is, gold is, And even after the bangle goes, gold continues to exist. So gold is nitya, whereas the bangle is anitya. And then the third and the most important lesson is that gold alone is the satya, meaning gold alone has independent existence. The bangle has got no independent existence. The bangle only has borrowed existence. The bangle is only the name given to a form of gold. The bangle is only nama rupa. And therefore, we find the necessity to introduce two words to describe the difference in the status of existence of the gold and the status of existence of the bangle. They cannot be put on the same pedestal. And therefore, we say the gold is satya and the bangle is mithya or asat. And then the question now is that what is the satya when it comes to this world? What is the substance here? What is the most fundamental substance here? What is the most fundamental material here? The scientists have been trying to answer this question, like we said. The scientists probed into matter. They probed into matter, and then they came up with these elements in the periodic table. They started off with when we were studying, it was like 108 elements or something. And now it has grown to become like 120. I don't know what the latest number is. But then they can keep discovering new elements also. But then they ask the question that is there something more fundamental than these elements? Then they came to the atoms. And the atoms are there. Each element has got its own atoms. But then is there something more fundamental than the atoms? Then they came to the protons, neutrons, and electrons. And is there something more fundamental? And they were able to break up the protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now they have 30 or 40 subparticles, subatomic particles, bosons and mesons and quarks and leptons. It's very even, I don't know, it's very difficult to remember all these names also. But then they are not able to categorically say whether these are even particles, because sometimes they behave like waves. So the science still does not know what exists, what really exists, what exists independently. And this is where Vedanta comes in and says that science will never come to understand what really exists independently. Because what science is probing into is Maya. And there is no finality for probing into Maya. Vedanta says that what ultimately exists here is Brahman and Brahman alone. Before this world came into being, before the Big Bang, what was there? Science has no clue. Vedanta says that Brahman was there, Brahman alone was there, independently existing. And then this world emerges in Brahman like ornaments emerge from gold. The world is purely Nama Rupatmaka. And then the world stays there for some time, and then the world finally resolves. Where does it resolve? Back into Brahman from where it came. Just like ornaments go back into gold. And therefore, Brahman is the Satya. Brahman is the Satya. We can say Satya or Satyam, but generally, more commonly, we say Satyam. So, Brahman is Satyam. And what is this world? This world is Mithya. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. This world doesn't have any independent existence apart from Brahman. This world is purely names and forms. Purely hollow. The world is entirely hollow. If you take anything in this world, then it reduces to names and forms. You take a piece of fabric and you look into what is the fabric, it reduces to threads. You look at what are these threads, it reduces to fibers. You look into what are these fibers, it reduces to cotton. So finally speaking, the fiber is entirely cotton. But then you look into what is cotton, it resolves into something else. You may say molecules, atoms, subatomic particles. So whatever you thought was previously existing is reduced to name and form. Something else exists in its place. That is why we say the entire Jagat is Nama Rupatmaka. And what is it that finally exists? It is Brahman and Brahman alone. So one may ask then, as we were discussing in the last class, then where is this Brahman? Why am I not able to see it somewhere? How do I know this Brahman? This is where Vedanta drops the bombshell of an answer. It says that you who are asking where is Brahman, you are Brahman. You yourself are Brahman. But I am this body mind, one may say. How can I be Brahman? I am limited only to this much. Where Vedanta says, when I say you, I am not talking about this body mind fake imposter self. I am talking about your real self, the Atma. The Atma, that is your real self, is Brahman. This is the understanding that I have to come to. This is the liberating knowledge. This is the liberating knowledge. Liberating from what? From the entire disease of samsara, from all of its distressing symptoms. And that is why Bhagavan is giving this Atma Jnanam here. Therefore, Bhagavan teaches that this mithya, na sato vidyate bhavaha, na asataha vidyate bhavaha. That this mithya jagat, which is asat, does not have bhavaha, meaning does not have independent existence. And na bhavo vidyate sataha, na abhavaha vidyate sataha. This sat, which is Brahman, this Atma, Brahman, it doesn't have any non-existence at all. It is always exist. It is the most fundamental material or substance that exists here. And therefore, there is no abhava for this Atma, that is Brahman. And Vanayoho Tattvadarshibhihi. Bhagavan says, Bhayoho api antaha drishtaha. Of these two, Satyam and Mithya, Antaha Drishtaha means the end is seen. The end meaning the ultimate nature of these two is seen. What is Satyam? What is Mithya? What is the nature of Satyam? What is the nature of Mithya? And what is this Satyam really? That I am that Satyam. This complete end. This end meaning the nature of these two is completely understood. Antaha drishtaha, ubhayoho anayoho api antaha drishtaha. By whom? Tattvadarshibhihi, by the knowers of truth, meaning by the Atma Jnanis. By those who know the Tattva, the Satyam, they know what is Mithya, that this Jagat is Mithya, what is Satyam, I, the Atma, am Satyam. And therefore, knowing that I am Satyam and the world is Mithya, one knows that one is completely unaffected. When we say the world, we are including the body-mind complex in it. That's a part of the world. So I, as the Atma, that is Satyam Brahma, am completely unaffected by this body-mind complex or this world. I am not affected by any event that happens in this body-mind complex or the world. Why? Just as the gold is never affected by the coming and going of ornaments. Just like the sand isn't affected by the mithya water, by the mirage water. Mirage water can never wet the sand. Gold is never affected by the coming and going of the ornaments. The dream can never affect the waker. Why? Because these two belong to different orders of reality. These are different orders of reality. Something in a lower order of reality cannot touch that which is in a higher order of reality. And therefore, this Mithya Jagat cannot touch me, who is the Satyam Atma. So the question now, Bhagavan is asking, is what are you grieving for? Are you grieving for the Sat or are you grieving for the asat? The nature of the asat is to come and go. In fact, the asat does not even really exist. Does not even really exist. And therefore, it cannot touch you who are the Satyam Atma. So the asat is not worth grieving for. The sat is not worth grieving for because the sat never comes and goes. The sat is immortal. The sat stands like a rock. So the wise people, the Tattvadarshinaha have this jnana. Therefore, Bhagavan is telling Arjuna and all of us indirectly that you should also get this jnana. Because the one who knows that I am the Satyam Brahma, such a person who knows that I am the Satyam, who knows that I am full, limitless and complete, that I don't have any death at all, that I never come and go, such a person has no need to lean upon the world. Because he knows the world is hollow. It has got no substance. It is asaraha, anityaha, asatyaha. And therefore there is no dependence upon the world for my fullness, my completeness. I don't have to depend upon the world. On the other hand, it's the world that depends upon me. The entire world depends upon me, and I don't have to depend upon anything, any blessed thing here at all. This is the level to which Vedanta elevates one. Vedanta turns the tables completely upside down. For an Ajnani is dependent upon everything in the world. For my emotional security, for my peace, security, and happiness. On the other hand, for Ajnani sees that everything here is dependent upon me. It's a complete reversal of the vision that takes place. And this is the vision that I have to come to. Why? Because if I don't come to this vision, then I'll be constantly embroiled, I'll be constantly entangled in this world and undergoing the distressing symptoms of samsara. This disease of samsara will not come to an end. So then there can be a doubt that, okay, you have talked to me about what is this Satyam, this Brahma, this Brahman, Atma. Now what is the nature of this Satyam, Brahma, Atma that is ever existent? What is its nature? Bhagavan comes to the next verse here. Avinashi tu tad vidhi.
Avinashi tu tat vidhi.
Yena sarvamidam tatam.
Yena sarvamidam tatam.
Vinashamavyayasya.
Vinashamavyyasyasya.
Na kaschit kartumarhati.
Na kaschit kartumarhati.
Bhagavan says, Avinashi tu tad vidhi. Vidhi is there. Vidhi means tvam vidhi. May you know that tvam is implicit there. Whereas vidhatu, parasmaipadi, madhyama purusha ekavachanam. It is madhyama purusha meaning tvam vidhi. May you know. The tvam is implicit. And what? May you know what? Tat tu avinashi. Avinashi to tat vidhi is there. We reword it, rearrange it as tat to avinashi. So tat means the Atma that I'm talking about, which is Brahman. Tat, tu means on the other hand. Tat tu avinashi. Avinashi means indestructible. Tat tu avinashi. So may you know that this Atma, on the other hand, is indestructible. Why does he say on the other hand? Well, he's comparing Atma and Anatma and saying that Atma is unlike Anatma. It is indestructible. And what is the nature of the Atma? So we think that if we are talking about the Atma is something that that is enclosed within this body-mind. It is this consciousness that is enclosed within this body-mind. So Bhagavan is almost coming to the Mahavakya here, even though the Mahavakya is not explicit. He says, Yena sarvamidam tatam. Yena sarvamidam tatam. Yena means that by which. By which. Sarvamidam means the entire world. Jagat sarvam. Tatam means is pervaded. Vyaptam. So by which this entire world is pervaded. So Bhagavan is equating the Atma to be Brahman, saying that the Atma is Brahman. In fact, in Bhagavad Pada's commentary also, he talks about Atma and Brahman and the equation of these two here. So, by what is the entire world pervaded? It is pervaded by that which is the ultimate substance, the Satyam, like we discussed. And that is Brahman. So just like in the world of gold ornaments, every ornament is pervaded by gold. The ornaments are only Namarupas, names and forms of gold. Without gold, the ornaments cannot even exist. So similarly, here Sarvamidam means the entire Jagat. Everything is pervaded by Atma, that is none other than Brahman, which is the Satyam. And the entire world, everything here is all Namarupas of Brahman. That's why we had said that just like we say, chainy gold, necklacey gold, ringy gold, that the change of language in order to show that everything is gold, just like that we can say this is a Brahmani wall, this is a Brahmani desk, this is a Brahmani computer. This is a Brahmani body-mind, meaning everything here is all Namarupas of Brahman alone. And the world cannot even exist. Nothing in this world can exist unless it is pervaded by Brahman, exactly like no ornament can exist unless it is pervaded by gold. So, yena sarvamidam tatam. So this here Bhagavan is also saying, therefore, that is Atma, that is this consciousness principle behind this body mind is sarvagataha, meaning it is all pervading. So how many, exactly like space is all pervading. So how many all pervading spaces are there? We say there is only one all-pervading space. It only appears to be many. We can talk about the small pot space and this large pot space and this room space, etc. So space appears to be enclosed within different enclosures. So the interesting thing to note is those enclosures can never divide space because the walls of the enclosure are themselves accommodated by space. If the space was not there, the walls would not have been there. And therefore, space remains all-pervading and indivisible in spite of appearing to be enclosed within multiple enclosures. So also the Atma consciousness, that is Brahman, is all-pervading and not really enclosed. It cannot be divided. Even though it appears to be enclosed within body-mind, different body-mind, it cannot be really enclosed by those body-minds. Because the walls of the body-mind, so to say, they themselves exist where? They cannot exist unless they are pervaded by Atma. So there is one Atma, that is none other than Brahman. And that's why Bhagavan says elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita also, Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Sthitaha. Bhagavan says that I am the Atma. Aham Atma Gudakesha, hey Arjuna. Aham Atma, I am the Atma. Sarva Bhutashaya Sthitaha, who's located within every being, behind every being. I pervade every being essentially as the Atma. There is one Atma that is all pervading. So when Bhagavan says, Tat tu avinashi, Tattu avinashi iti tvam vidhi. When Bhagavan is saying this, Krishna is saying that Atma avinashi, meaning as Atma, you are nitya. So in a different language, Bhagavan is saying that instead of saying you are nitya, Bhagavan is saying you are indestructible, avinashi. A bangle can be destroyed. A bangle can be destroyed, but in a world of gold ornaments, where the gold, if you imagine that gold is the ultimate substance, the bangles, chains, necklaces, rings, etc., can be destroyed. But the gold itself cannot be destroyed because that's the most fundamental substance. Similarly, here in this world, everything can be destroyed, but the Atma Brahman cannot be destroyed. It is indestructible. And this is what we say in our fourth feature of consciousness also, that consciousness continues to exist even when the body mind disintegrates, even when all the body minds disintegrate. Avinashi, it is Avinashi. And yena sarvam idam tatam. So Avinashi indicates that this Atma, consciousness, has got no time-wise limitation. Time-wise, you cannot draw a boundary around it because it is indestructible, immortal. Yena sarvam idam tadam indicates that it has no space-wise limitation. It is all pervading. And therefore, Atma has got no space or time limitation. Then in the second line, Bhagavan says, Vinasham avyayasya asya. Vinasham avyayasya asya na kaschit kartum arhati. Bhagavan says, na arhati. Na arhati means not capable. So who is not capable? Kaschit. Kaschit means no one. So kaschit na arhati means no one is capable. Kaschit na arhati means no one is capable. No one is capable for what? Kartum. Kartum means to do. Kaschit kartum na arhati. No one is capable to do. No one is capable to do what? Vinasham. The third quarter we see Vinasham. Vinasham means destruction, disappearance, non-existence, death. So kaschit vinasham kartum na arhati. No one is capable of destroying. And whose destruction is Bhagavan talking about? Asya avyayasya. Asya avyayasya sataha atmanaha brahmanaha. These are words we can supply. Sataha means of Sat. Atmanaha means of Atma. Brahmanaha means of Brahman. So asya sataha atmanaha brahmanaha vinasham kaschit kartum na arhati. Nobody can do it. Nobody can destroy this. Kaschit kartum na arhati. Now here, Bhagavan is using, here if we see, he says vinasham kartum na arhati. So there are two types of destruction that are possible. Two types of destruction that are possible. One is of something may have an internal destruction. That is sort of a natural death of that thing. It naturally goes away after some time. And the second is that some external force or factor acts upon it and destroys it. There are two types of destruction that are possible. A destruction caused by an external agent or an externally induced destruction, we can say. So here the first line, Avinashi tu tat vidhi, tat tu Avinashi vidhi indicates that Atma, being Satyam Brahma, does not have any internal destruction, any natural death. So the names and forms, for example, come and go. The names and forms come and go, but the Atma that pervades them continues to exist. Exactly like ornaments come and go, but the gold continues to exist. And this internal destruction is not possible because Atma doesn't have any parts. For everything for which some internal destruction is possible, if we look into it, then it will have some parts that it is dependent upon. And those parts, for example, this body, if you take this body, it has got a liver, heart, kidney, etc. So those parts can become weaker over time. And then the parts may finally stop functioning, in which case the whole body collapses, the whole body dies. Whereas Atma nir-avayavaha, meaning it is without avayavas. Avayavas means parts. Therefore, no such internal destruction is possible for the Atma. And na kaschit kartumarhati vinasham, kaschit na kartumarhati vinasham, kaschit kartum na arhati. Here, Bhagavan is saying that no external force can act upon the Atma to destroy it. And this is because Atma doesn't depend upon anything else. For example, and Bhagavad Gita gives the example of a person called Devadatta. Devadatta, let us say, is dependent, he derives his power. He derives his power because he has some wealth. So because of the wealth, he is powerful. So if he loses his wealth, then he can lose his power. Or we can take an example of an old man, for example, who walks using a walking stick. So if the walking stick gets destroyed, he loses his capability to walk. That is because there is dependence upon something else. But Atma is not dependent upon anything at all. In fact, everything else depends upon Atma. Atma doesn't depend upon anything else. And therefore, the collapse of something else cannot bring about a collapse of the Atma. This is the first point. Then the second point is that, really speaking, there is no second thing at all which can destroy this because the Atma is non-dual. Atma is Advaitam. Advaitam means non-dual, meaning there is no second real entity other than the Atma at all that can destroy it. Like one ornament, let us say there's a bulky ornament, there's a big ornament, and then there is a smaller ornament. Now you can bang the smaller ornament with the bigger ornament, and you can probably squish the smaller ornament, or you can destroy it. But no ornament can destroy the gold, because the ornaments are dependent upon the gold for their own existence. Or if we take the example of a movie screen, then on the movie screen, various characters and objects appear. And the characters, like if there's a bullet fired on the movie screen, the bullet can hit the hero or the villain and can bring an end to the hero or the villain. But no bullet can puncture a hole on the screen. Why? Because it depends upon the screen for its existence. And therefore, no jivaha, nothing in this jagat, not even Bhagavan, can bring about a destruction of the Atma, because the Jivaha, Jagat, and Bhagavan are the characters who appear in a movie that's happening on the screen of the Atma. They are all dependent upon the Atma for its existence. The Atma is Sarvatma Brahman, which lends existence to Jivaha, Jagat, and Ishvara. Therefore, nothing in the Jivaha, Jagat, or Ishvara can destroy the Atma. That is their very being. That's the point here. So now there can be a doubt here. That okay, you have talked to me about what the Atma is, what Brahman is. That Atma, being Brahman, is Nityaha. Nityaha means it is immortal. This Satyaha means it is the reality. It is the only entity that is independently existent. And it is Sarvagataha, it is all pervading. Now, what is the Asat? What is the Asat that comes and goes? That appears and then loses its existence. So what is this Asat? This Bhagavan talks about in the next verse. Antavanta ime dehaha
अन्तवन्त इमे देहाः
nityasyoktā sharirinaha
नित्यस्योक्ता शरीरिणः
anashino prameyasya
अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य
tasmadyudhyasva bharata.
तस्मात् युध्यस्व भारत.
Antavantaha ime dehaha. There's a visarga there after antavanta as well as deha, which are removed because of sandhi rules. Nityasya uktaha sharirinaha anashinaha aprameyasya tasmat yudhyasva bharata. So Bhagavan says, hey Bharata, O Arjuna, yudhyasva. Yudhyasva means literally, may you get up and fight. And because of what reason? Tasmat. Tasmat says Bhagavan. Tasmat means therefore. Therefore, hey Bharata, tasmat yudhyasva. Therefore, may you get up and fight, says Bhagavan. So therefore means what is the reason? Therefore is generally said when you have said something and then something else follows from it. So what is Bhagavan saying, because of which he is using the word therefore, tasmat? Bhagavan says, we look at the first quarter, ime dehaha, ime dehaha, and then nityasya uktaha. So ime dehaha iti uktaha. We can supply the word iti. Iti means thus. So ime dehaha means these bodies. These bodies are said to be. These bodies are said to be. Ime dehaha uktaha means these bodies are said to be. So these bodies are said to be what? It says antavantaha. Antavantaha. Ime dehaha antavantaha iti uktaha. We can say ime dehaha antavantaha iti uktaha. Antavantaha, these bodies. Ime dehaha means these bodies. Antavantaha means they are endowed with an end. Antavat shabdaha. Prathama vibhakti bahuvachana. Antavantaha. So they are endowed with an end. Antaha vidyate yesham te antavantaha. So there are two meanings here we can attribute to antaha, end. One is the obvious meaning that the bodies have got a death, and therefore they come to an end. For example, we can take the example of a pot to understand the two meanings. Let us say the pot is there, and then the pot can be destroyed. It can be broken or powdered. So when the pot is broken or powdered, then the pot ceases to exist. And this can be called layaha, meaning the pot ceases to exist as a pot because it has been destroyed physically. The pot was there in the past. And now after destruction, the pot ceases to exist. This is called layaha. But there is another form of destruction. There's another form of destruction that is called badaha. Badhaha, meaning destruction by knowledge. So this is where the brilliance of Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya comes in his bhashyas. That generally, if we were to read this verse, and most people translate it as saying Antavantaha means the body dies. That is the first meaning is only taken into account. And Bhagavad Pada says here, really speaking, the deeper meaning here to take is the destruction by knowledge. The laya is a form of inferior destruction, whereas destruction by knowledge is a superior destruction. Why? Because when you look at a pot, and if you come to know that what is there is only the clay, then you say that the clay alone is. The pot is not really there at all. In fact, the pot was never there in the three periods of time, the past, the present, and the future. Clay alone is. This is destruction by knowledge because the notion that there is something called the pot that exists, that notion goes away completely, and we say that the pot was never there in the past, it is not there in the present, and will never be there in the future. This is called Badha. And therefore, we can apply these two meanings to the body also. We can say that the body will physically die. Antavantaha ime deha. So that is a superficial meaning. The deeper meaning here is that upon the rise of Atma Jnanam, when one understands that it is the Atma or Brahman alone that exists, then the isness, the existence that was originally given to the body or anything in the world is plucked away from the body and handed over to Brahman. And therefore, this is the end of the notion that the body has existence. The end of the notion that the body has got independent existence is what we call antaha. And therefore, all the bodies are antavantaha. But this second meaning is recognized only upon the rise of Atma Dhyana. And whose bodies are we talking about here? Krishna says here, Antavantaha ime dehaha nityasya uktaha sharirinaha. Sharirinaha. These are bodies of the embodied one, meaning the Atma. The Atma is the possessor of the body. Therefore, it's called Shariri. So, Sharirin Shabdaha, Nakaranta Sharirin Shabdaha, Shashti Vibhakti, Ekavachanam is Sharirinaha. So here also we are using plural for the dehas. Antamanta ime dehaha is bahuvachanam, plural. But when it comes to the shariri, nityasya uttaha, sharirinaha, ekavachanam is used for the shariri. Why? Because there is only one Atma, that is Brahman. Only one of the one shariri, and therefore ekavachanam. So, sharirinaha of the Atma, ime dehaha antavantaha iti uktaha. Of this Atma, his bodies are said to have an end. And we can take the two forms of end, physical end or end of by understanding that they don't really have independent existence. So iti uktaha, this is said. Said by whom? By whom is it said? We can supply viveki bhihi or jnani bhihi. By the wise ones, by the vivekis, by the Atma Jnanis, this is said. And what is the nature of the Atma? What is the nature of the Atma? So Bhagavan is using two words here. In the third quarter, nityasya, in the second quarter, and in the third quarter, anashina. So nityasya and anashina are adjectives for sharirina. Nityasya, anashina. So both nitya and anashi, anashi again is anashin shabda, nakaranta shabda. So both nityaha and anashin, they both mean eternal. They both mean immortal, superficially. So then, why is Bhagavan using two words? Why is Bhagavan using two words here? Because there are two types of destruction that are possible. One type of destruction is that something can continue to exist, but it can degenerate. For example, if we look at a body that lives 80, 85 years or whatever, initially the body is very healthy, but then there's degeneration in terms of its health. And you can clearly see the degeneration in the body. It becomes weaker, wrinkles appear, the limbs don't function. This is one type of degeneration, which is a form of destruction. And the second is that something entirely ceases to exist. Means this body finally dies and then it is burned and it's reduced to ashes. The body is not at all there. Now, it is not there in its form at all. This is the second type of destruction. So one type of destruction is degeneration. The other type of destruction is that it ceases to exist altogether in that form. So Bhagavan is using two words here to indicate that Atma has neither type of destruction. Atma doesn't have any degeneration. Because like we have said, Atma doesn't depend upon anything. It has no parts, etc. And it has no external dependence. And therefore, it has no degeneration. And moreover, to say that there is some degeneration happening, you also need to have attributes. And Atma is attributeless. So what change can you talk about in the Atma? And therefore, it doesn't have the first type of destruction. It doesn't have any degeneration. And then Atma can never lose its existence also. You can only destroy that which can be destroyed. For example, you can destroy pots, or you can demolish even houses. But the space cannot be destroyed. The space enclosed within the pot, enclosed in quotation marks, the space that is enclosed within the pots or within the room or within the house, that cannot be destroyed at all. It is indestructible. Therefore, Atma doesn't have these two types of destruction, and therefore Bhagavan is using two words to indicate eternal, nityasya anashinaha. And then Bhagavan uses another very significant word here, saying aprameyasya. Anashinaha aprameyasya. There is when we split that, it becomes anashinaha aprameyasya. Aprameyasya means that which is unobjectifiable, which is never an object of knowledge. It is the opposite of the word prameya. Prameya means object of knowledge, something that is an object of knowledge. Aprameya means that which can never be an object of knowledge. So when any knowledge takes place, there are three factors involved in that knowledge. For example, there is a pot, the pot. Now for me to know the pot, the pramata or the knower has to be there. Knower is called pramata. And the knower has to use a means of knowledge to know something. So I have to use my eyes, for example, my sense of vision. I have to use my eyes in order to see the pot. And therefore, this is called the instrument of knowledge. Means of knowledge is called pramanam. So the pramata uses a pramanam to know an object of knowledge that is called prameya. Meya. So pramata uses the pramanam to know the prameya. The knower uses a means of knowledge to know an object of knowledge. Now Vedanta has done a lot of deep inquiry into how any knowledge takes place. How does knowledge take place? This is a very, very central and a fundamental part of the teaching of Vedanta. How does any knowledge take place, and why is this important? Because our aim is Atma Jnanam. So we need clarity on how Atma Jnanam is going to take place. Therefore, we have to understand how any knowledge takes place. So Vedanta does deep inquiry into it. Vedanta identifies 6 pramanas, 6 means of knowledge by which a human being can come to know things in this world. There are 6 means of knowledge. And I'll just enumerate them here, although we will not go into each of them in detail. So pratyaksha, or perception, is one means of knowledge. Anumana, or inference, the second means of knowledge. Arthapattihi, postulation, the third means of knowledge. Anupalabdhi, or knowing the non-existence things, non-apprehension, the fourth means of knowledge. Upamanam, or similarity, the fifth means of knowledge. And shabdaha, words, are the sixth means of knowledge. Vedanta analyzes all of these in detail because we have to understand how one is going to come to, through which pramana am I going to get Atma Jnana. Therefore, this analysis is extremely important. And we had done a very deep analysis of all of this in the fundamentals of Vedanta class. We will not be able to go into that in the same depth here. But I'll just give a taste of that topic by taking 3 of the 6 pramanas. So the first one is pratyaksha, or pratyaksha, or perception, the first means of knowledge. And that is gaining knowledge of the world through my sense organs. And so pratyaksha is making use of the sense organs of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. 5 sense organs of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching. So making use of these 5 sense organs to know the world, this comes under pratyaksha. So I can know shabdaha, sparshaha, rupam, rasaha, gandhaha. I can know all of these things about the world. How do I know them? Through pratyaksha, through my sense organs. But pratyaksha can be used to gain knowledge of objects only when that object can be contacted by my sense organs. But there are cases where I gain knowledge of the existence of something without my senses contacting it. That is through anumana or inference. For example, parvataha vanniman dhumavatvat mahanasavat. This is what we say on Anumanam. Parvataha vanniman, meaning vannihi means fire. Parvataha mountain. Parvataha vanniman means the mountain has got fire. And this is inference. I have not seen the fire, but I am inferring the mountain has fire. How? Because it is dhumavat. Dhumavat means I can see smoke billowing from the mountain. I see the smoke billowing from the mountain, and therefore, even though I have not seen the fire, I infer the presence of fire on the mountain. And what's an example? I have seen in the kitchen, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. One has to have seen the prior occurrence of smoke and fire in the same locus. So in the kitchen, I have seen smoke, and whenever there is smoke, I have seen there is fire, and therefore I extend that principle to the mountain also. And once I am able to do this extension, I can do it anywhere in this world. This is called inference. The inference is a powerful means of knowledge because without seeing the presence of something explicitly, I can infer the presence. So this is not pratyaksha, because pratyaksha requires sense objects to contact the fire. Here the sense objects haven't directly contacted the fire, but I know the presence of the fire. Why? Because I see the smoke. Smoke is the clue that leads me to conclude that the fire is there. This is called anumana. Anumana. And then there is arthapattihi, upamana, anupalabdhi. We will not get into that here. But then another important means of knowledge that Vedanta talks about is shabdaha, or words. So there is a lot of things I come to know about the world without having myself done the pratyaksha or anumana. For example, I read in my science books that the earth is rotating on its axis. I have not done pratyaksha, I have not applied anumana, but I read the words in my science books. And how did the scientists figure it out? Because they have done pratyaksha or anumana. Through pratyaksha or anumana, through perception or inference, they have come to know that the earth is rotating on its axis. And then I see it in the form of words, and I trust those words. And therefore, I also come to know that the earth rotates on its axis, and the earth goes around the sun. There are so many things we know that I have not directly known through pratyaksha or anumana, but I have known through shabdas. So all these three, and including the other three pramanas, totally six pramanas, they can all be categorized as laukika pramanas. Laukika pramanas, because these pramanas are generally available to me in the world. I can employ my pratyaksha, anumana, I can employ shabdas to understand things. So these shabdas are called laukika shabdas. Why? Because they have their origin eventually in Laukika Pramanas. The Laukika Shabdas that I read in my science or history or geography, finally they have their origin in some of the Laukika Pramanas like Pratyaksha, Anumana, Arthapatti, Upamana, Anupalabdhi, etc. So now what Vedanta says is that none of these Laukika Pramanas can help me know the Atma. By employing the Laukika Pramana, I cannot come to know the Atma. By employing the Laukika Pramana, I can come to know about a pot, I can come to know about galaxies, I can come to know about microbes. The entire science, the foundation of science is all Pratyaksha and Anumana. That is what science is based on. But Vedanta says through Pratyaksha and Anumana and all of the other Laukika Pramanas and the Laukika Shabdas, you cannot come to know the Atma. Why is that? Because all of these senses are outward directed. All of these senses can know things of the world. They can know the drishyam. They can know what is seen. So through pratyaksha, I can know only that which is seen in the world. Heard, smelt, touched, tasted. I can come to know all of these through pratyaksha. But Atma is never a drishyam as we have seen, because Atma is the very drik. Atma is the knower, the seer, and therefore the seer or the knower can never be known by employing pratyaksha. Because Atma is drik, and what the pratyaksha can know is drishyam. And therefore pratyaksha is ruled out. Atma cannot be known by Anumana also. Why? Because Anumana is dependent upon Pratyaksha in order to infer that there is fire on the hill. Even though I don't see the fire, I see the smoke, but earlier, prior to this, I must have seen both the fire and the smoke in the kitchen, for example. And therefore, whatever I am inferring, I should have seen it somewhere earlier in order to be able to infer it without seeing it. And therefore, Anumana is also ruled out. Anumana is dependent upon Pratyaksha. I can never have seen the drik earlier somewhere in order to infer about the drik in the future. Anumana is also ruled out. And therefore, the entire body of scientific knowledge is ruled out. It can never come to any conclusion about the Atma. And then what about Laukika Shabdas? Perhaps through Laukika Shabdas, I can come to know the Atma. We say no, because the Laukika Shabdas are dependent upon the Laukika Pramanas like Pratyaksha and Anumana, and therefore Laukika Shabdas can only repeat what has been found through Pratyaksha and Anumana, and nobody could have known anything about the Atma through Pratyaksha and Anumana, and therefore no Laukika Shabdas can work. Therefore, Atma is aprameya when it comes to all the Laukika Pramanas. Okay, so we have ruled out all the pramanas, and how am I going to come to know about the Atma? How am I going to come to know the Atma? You ruled out all the means of knowledge. So we say, wait a minute. We have talked about the Vaidika Shabda Pramana. So the Laukika Shabdas are the carriers of knowledge that have been obtained through the Laukika Pramanas. Okay, you rule it out. But what about Vaidika Shabda Pramana? Because the Vaidika Shabdas are not carriers of knowledge that have been obtained through the Laukika Pramanas, but the Vaidika Shabdas themselves are revealers of knowledge, revealers of things that can never be known through the Laukika Pramanas. So what about the Vaidika Shabda Pramana? So this is where there is a misconception that the Atma is prameya when it comes to the Vedika Shabda Pramana. So we say that Atma is still a prameya when it comes to the Vedika Shabda Pramana also. How is that? Because I was thinking that through the Vedika Shabda Pramana, I can know about the existence of the Atma. Why do you say that Atma is aprameya when it comes to the Vedika Shabda Pramana? We say that through the Vedika Shabda Pramana also I don't come to know about the existence of Atma. Because the Atma is self-revealing. Vedika Shabda Pramana also doesn't reveal the existence of Atma. In fact, no Pramana needs to reveal the existence of Atma because the Atma is self-revealing. That's why it's called Swata Siddha. Atma is aprameya, all right. Atma cannot be, the existence of Atma cannot be known through any of the pramanas, including Vedika Shabda Pramana. But the existence of Atma need not be known through any of the pramanas because the Atma is self-revealing. It is Swata Siddha. What does it mean, Swata Siddha? Say that even in the darkest of rooms, if I am sitting in the darkest of rooms and I ask you, are you there? You're not able to see anything, even if you open your eyes, it's pitch dark. I ask you, are you there? You don't say, wait a minute, let me get a torch for me to find out am I there or not. If I ask you, is the pot there? You will say, let me get a torch, then I'll find out if the pot is there or not. But if I ask you, are you there or not? Without blinking an eyelid, you say, I am there. I'm doubtlessly there. So I know that I am doubtlessly there. I exist without any pramana. I don't say that let me read the Veda to find out whether I am there or not. So the Veda doesn't reveal the existence of the Atma. This is very important. I know that I exist. So Atma is said to be self-evident, Svata Siddha. Then what is the purpose of the Vedika Shabda Pramana? What are the Vedas then revealing? Why should I gain the Atma Jnana if the Atma is self-revealing? We say that the Vedika Shabda Pramanas are not revealing the existence of the Atma. You know that you exist. And what is the use of the Vedika Shabdas if they're not revealing the existence of the Atma? The use of the Vedika Shabda Pramana, including the Pramana of the words of the Bhagavad Gita, those are also reiteration of the Vedika Shabda Pramana. What is the use of those words? It is not to tell me that I exist. I know that I exist. But it is, but I have not understood who I am. Who is this I that exists? I have not understood that. There's Atma Ajnanam, and because of that I've mistaken what exists. And therefore, the purpose of the Vedika Shabda Pramana is not to tell me about the existence of Atma, but it is to knock off all the misconceptions that I have about myself, about what exists, about who is it that is really existing here. To knock off all these misconceptions that the Vedika Shabda Pramana and the words of the Bhagavad Gita are required. And therefore, Atma is aprameya, meaning that the Atma cannot be revealed. The existence of Atma cannot be revealed by any Pramana. But thankfully, the existence of Atma need not be revealed by any Pramana because I know that I am self-existent and I am the one who is employing all the pramanas. The purpose of the Vedika Shabda Pramana and words of the Bhagavad Gita that are reiterating the Vedika Shabda Pramana is to remove my self-ignorance, the Atma Jnanam, and to remove all this adhyasa mix-up that I have caused about who I am. Therefore, Atma is aprameyaha, but swatasiddha. So we have seen Atma nityaha, eternal. Atma is satyaha, reality. Atma is sarvagataha, all pervading. And Atma is aprameyaha, never an object of knowledge of any pramana. And therefore, Bhagavan says, Tasmat yudhyasva. Tasmat yudhyasva. Therefore, Bhagavan is telling Arjuna, now you do what needs to be done. Having known this, do what needs to be done. Because once you have the knowledge, then you know that I am Purnaha. Then you are no longer dependent upon anything in the world. Once you know you are Purnaha, and then you are not doing anything in the world in order to gain something. A jnani doesn't act in the world because there's something to gain. Because for a jnani, there is nothing left to gain. Knowing that I am Purnaha, limitless, full and complete, as the Atma that is Brahman, there is nothing left to gain. And therefore, nothing needs to be done in order to gain something. And nothing in the world can obstruct one now from doing what needs to be done. If a person doesn't have this jnanam, then ragaha, attachments can obstruct one from doing what needs to be done. Shokaha and mohaha can obstruct one from doing what needs to be done. But once one knows that I am limitless, full and complete as this Atma, that is Brahman, then all the obstructions are gone. Therefore, you do what needs to be done. And for Arjuna, it happens to be the Yuddha. Now this, Tasmad Yudhyasva, is a specific instruction meant for Arjuna. It is not something that we should take saying Tasmat Yudhyasva. We, in our lives, we should take this teaching to mean that I should do in any situation. Now, having known this, I have to do what needs to be done in any situation. So now, this is a message of the 18th verse. And in the next verse, Bhagavan is telling that if you think that you are the doer or the enjoyer or the sufferer, then that idea is also fallacious. If you are the karta, bhokta, that idea is also fallacious. We'll read that verse number 19. Ya enam vetti hantaram.
Ya enam vetti hantaram.
Yaschainam manyate hatam.
Yaschainam manyate hatam.
Ubhau tau na vijanitaha.
Ubhau tau na vijanitaha.
Nayam hanti na hanyate.
Nayam hanti na hanyate.
So in this particular verse, Bhagavan is drawing from the Kathopanishad. So verse from Kathopanishads, 1 to 19, to be exact, that's the Kathopanishad reference that is paraphrased here by Bhagavan. And Bhagavan is saying, Yaha enam hantaram vetti, the first quarter, Yaha enam hantaram vetti, meaning one who takes the Atma to be a killer. Hantaram means one who kills. The one who takes the Atma to be a killer. And because in the context of Arjuna is using the word killing, because that's an action that one has to do in the Yuddha. But more generally, we can take this as if one takes the Atma as a karta or a doer of any action. That's a more general meaning of this. Or in the second quarter, yes chainam manyate hatam is there. The second quarter, we split it as yaha cha enam manyate hatam, or one who takes the Atma to be killed. Hatam manyate means if one takes the Atma to be killed. Or more generally, one takes Atma to be the bhokta, meaning the enjoyer or sufferer. Then Bhagavan is saying in the third quarter, na vijanitaha, meaning both of them do not know. One who takes the Atma to be a doer, and another who takes the Atma to be an enjoyer or sufferer, both of them do not know. Ubhautau na vijanitaha. Ubhautau means both of them. One who says the Atma is the doer, one who says the Atma is the enjoyer or sufferer, both do not know. And what don't they know? They don't know what the Atma is. Or in other words, they don't know who they are. They don't know who the I is. They have been using the word I all their lives. We have all been using the word I all our lives. And Bhagavan is saying you don't know who you are if you're saying the Atma is the doer, or if you're saying the Atma is the enjoyer or sufferer. And why don't they know? Why don't they know who they are? Because there is Atma Ajnanam. And there are Adhyasa that follows Atma Ajnanam. There's a mix-up that follows Atma Ajnanam. And therefore, the body is equated to the I. The body-mind is equated to the I. And therefore, whatever the body is doing, they take it to be I am doing that. The self is the actor of engaged in the action. Or whatever is happening to the body is enjoying or suffering. He says, I am enjoying or suffering. That's again a mix-up. That's due to a mix-up. The Atma is not the doer. The Atma is not the enjoyer or sufferer. They don't know the 5 features of consciousness. That the Atma or the nature of consciousness is not a part, product, or property of this body-mind. That this Atma, that is of the nature of consciousness, is an independent principle that illumines this body-mind. So, one doesn't know oneself as this Atma or consciousness. One does not know the real self, and therefore one mistakes oneself to be this body-mind. Therefore, I say, whatever this body is doing, I am doing. And if this body is enjoying or suffering, I say, I am enjoying or suffering. That is a mistake. Then what is the truth? In the fourth quarter, Bhagavan says, Nayam hanti na hanyate. The truth is that Atma is neither the killer, nor is it the killed. Na hanti means it's not the killer. Na hanyate. Na hanyate means that it's not the killed. Meaning, more generally, it is not the karta, not the bhokta, not the doer, not the enjoyer, not the sufferer. So here again, Bhagavan is, as we said, Bhagavan has taken this verse from the Kathopanishad. Bhagavan is literally quoting the Kathopanishad here. So Bhagavan being Bhagavan could have just told this. He needn't have quoted the Kathopanishad here. So Bhagavan is setting an example because Bhagavan is a role model. He is upholding the Vedanta, being a Praman, as a means of knowledge. So Bhagavan is upholding the Upanishads as a Pramana. Because the common man follows the example of the role model. So Bhagavan elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita says, Yadyad acharati shreshtaha tattadeve taraha janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokaha tad anuvartate. So whatever example a role model sets, the rest of the world follows it. Therefore, Bhagavan is indirectly telling us that the Upanishads are the pramana for Atma Jnanam. Therefore, Bhagavan is bringing in the Upanishads, saying that Upanishads are saying what I am saying. So, from this we understand that even the avatars in Sanatana Dharma, They are born into the Vedic tradition. And an important role of the avatara is to uphold and reinvigorate the Vedic tradition. And therefore, a part of this tradition is that the smritihi should always be in keeping with the shrutihi. Shruti smrityoho virodhe to shrutireva gariyasi, meaning that if there is a virodha, if there is a conflict between smritihi and shrutihi, and the shrutihi is what should be taken into account. The smritihi has to be interpreted in keeping with the shruti. And Bhagavad Gita is a smritihi. Upanishad, Kathopanishad is a shrutihi. Bhagavad Gita is a smritihi. And therefore, Bhagavan says that the teaching, whatever I am giving you, is in keeping with the Shrutihi. And therefore, several verses in the Bhagavad Gita can be traced back to the Shrutihi. Vedanta, Vedas, the Kathopanishad. And therefore, if one person considers the Atma to be the doer, Karta, then that person doesn't know the real nature of the Atma. And if one person takes the Atma to be the sufferer or the enjoyer, even that person does not know the real nature of the Atma. The Atma is not the Karta, not the Bhokta. We'll continue in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.